Coming up on Valley View News, new deportation laws take effect across the nation. Plus, a local blind skateboarder wants to pave the way for athletes with disabilities. And a Beverly Hills bookbinder uses his small shop to restore antique collectibles.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Elizabeth Medina.
And I'm Mary Pronian in the Digital Media Center.
The largest storm of the season will bring heavy snow and downpours to the west coast this week. Winds as high as 60 miles per hour are anticipated in some areas. The National Weather Service says most of California will experience precipitation. Flash flood and mudslide alerts are predicted for Southern California. As severe weather affects many regions throughout the country, CSUN students reflect on ways they stay prepared for potentially hazardous conditions.
I know a lot of people go on Twitter and, the Twitter notifications that's in your area. Sometimes people will post about if there's a lot of rain.
But I'm not too worried. My car's a four-wheel drive, so I think I'll be okay.
The power storm comes after California experienced the second driest water year on record. The entire state is currently under a moderate drought watch. Experts say the expected rain and snowpack will bring some relief to the dry environment.
500 LA Unified School District employees who refused to get vaccinated against COVID-19 were fired. The decision was made last week when the school board voted 7-0 to terminate 496 employees. LAUSD personnel were required to be fully vaccinated by November 15th. About 34,000 students are still unvaccinated. According to a new policy, those students will be forced into the district's independent study program, or they will have to leave the LA public school system.
The LA Unified School District has voted for a new superintendent. The school board voted unanimously in favor of Alberto Carvalho, a superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools, the fourth largest system in the country.
The Los Angeles Unified School System has offered me the position of superintendent. In fact, they just wrapped up a meeting where they unanimously have made this decision. And we're now going to enter a phase of contract negotiations.
LA has the second largest school district in the U.S. with over 500,000 students. Megan K. Riley has served as interim superintendent since Austin Butner stepped down in June. The details of Carvalho's contract are yet to be finalized.
An estimated 11 million people are undocumented in the U.S. Their future is set to change drastically after the Department of Homeland Security announced new deportation guidelines. Valley View's Diane Zermeño has the story.
The Department of Homeland Security says it'll no longer deport people solely for being undocumented. Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas also says that ICE can no longer deport farm workers, faith leaders, or frontline health workers. In undocumented communities like Panorama City, some residents feel a sense of tranquility. I think it's the best decision that they made for us Latinos so we could work in peace, and give our families a better life. The new guidelines went into effect on November 29th. Only those who are suspected of terrorism or espionage, have committed serious crimes, or who crossed illegally after November 1st, 2020 are eligible for deportation. Some people agree that deportations are still necessary. It's good that they toss out those bad people. Every day there's deaths here, rapes. What is that, if this is the #1 country in the world? Alberto Vargas says his childhood was spent in a mostly undocumented community in the East San Fernando Valley. Now he works in local government. He says with the new rules, he and other people in undocumented communities can have access to places they once feared going to before.
People are going to rest a little easier to know that, okay, I'm not just going to be deported, or ICE is not going to come banging on my door to take me away just because I'm undocumented,
DHS says officers are currently undergoing training on the new guidelines to ensure effective implementation nationwide. Reporting from Panorama City for Valley View News, I'm Diane Cermeño.
Late Senator Bob Dole was honored with a service at the Washington National Cathedral. He died of lung cancer at age 98 on December 5th. Politicians from both parties attended, as well as family and friends. President Joe Biden praised his public service and called him a genuine hero.
Bob was a man who always did his duty, who lived by a code of honor. Almost seems strange to say that today, but he lived by a code of honor. And he meant it.
A decorated veteran, Dole was an advocate for service members and people with disabilities. During the funeral service, Dole's daughter shared a segment of a farewell letter her father wrote in secret. Dole asked the public to never forget the sacrifice made by those who wear a uniform.
California may become a sanctuary for those seeking abortions. This may be the result if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. Next year, up to 24 states will consider abortion bans. A group called the California Future of Abortion Council has created recommendations for the state to consider if the overturn is implemented. They also include assistance with lodging and travel. Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood organizers say they served 7,000 people last year from other states, with a recent increase coming from Texas.
Thousands of Cubans worldwide marched against the Cuban government in favor of a communist-free country. Valley View's Catherine Hernandez has the story.
Last week, thousands of Cubans took the streets protesting for a communist-free country. It was the largest protest in Cuban history since the 1959 revolution. Many cities across the world held demonstrations supporting the Cuban protesters, except for Los Angeles.
And so I saw that Los Angeles was not on the list, and I was in awe. I was like, how can LA not be on the list? Like, there's so many Cubans here. So I said, okay, well, I waited a couple of days, and then I said, you know what, I'm doing it.
Allegedly, many of the Cuban protesters have been sentenced to between 13 and 27 years in prison for speaking up and posting their views on social media. Even though the Cuban government says protesting is illegal, Cuban activists say they'll move forward with the pro-democracy marches. All to respect an ideology that is ancient. What it does is backtrack and destroy Cuba, leaving Cuba in what it already has been in, the ruins. Meanwhile, some Cuban Americans say they'll continue to fight for a Cuba Libre. They're waiting for the day when there's no longer division in their country. The Cuban government says they're protecting the rights of its people. Los Angeles protesters want Cuban protesters to know that no matter the distance, they aren't alone.
So that they can walk with a white rose and wear white and not be oppressed and beaten and put in prison. Viva Cuba.
Through the protests, Cubans simply want freedom and democracy. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Catherine Hernandez.
Donald Trump lost an appeal to block federal records from investigators of the 2021 Capitol attack. California Representative Adam Schiff explained what the January 6th House panel is looking for.
What anticipation did they have that there would be a march on the Capitol in the White House? What role did they play in planning any of this? What understanding did they have about who was going to be participating and the presence of white nationalist groups, the propensity for violence?
The former president now wants to ask the Supreme Court to overturn the decision. Trump appointed 3 of the justices serving currently, which he hopes will rule in his favor. The documents are being held by the National Archives and protected by executive privilege.
President Biden signed an executive order to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The order is part of a broader agenda to transform the nation's energy system. It states that the federal government can have an influence on industries that build and manage electricity, vehicles, buildings, and other operations. The energy and climate agenda has already encountered resistance from some Republicans. Representative Carol Miller said Biden should focus on policies that strengthen domestic production instead.
The father and son accused of sparking the Caldor wildfire that burned during August through October in El Dorado and Amador counties have pleaded not guilty. David Scott Smith and Travis Shane Smith are facing multiple charges, including reckless arson, illegal conversion of a machine gun, and illegal possession of a firearm silencer. After a $1 million bail was set for each defendant, David Smith's attorney said her client is innocent and has proven that he isn't a flight risk.
They had no intention of not coming back to court, no intention of participating in anything like that. And in fact, it was to the contrary, trying to help out.
Court documents don't detail the exact connection between the Smiths' firearm and silencer with the Caldor fire. However, they stated specific dates for when the silencer was acquired and when the weapon was illegally altered. In total, the Caldor fire burned 221,835 acres for 69 days. 5 people were hurt and more than 1,000 structures were destroyed. The Smiths are scheduled to appear in court again this week.
Mom and pop businesses in LA County are adapting to recently implemented COVID-19 ordinances. Our reporter Malik Patterson has the story.
California was one of the first states to have a person test positive for the Omicron variant. Subsequently, Los Angeles County became a leader in the new OSHA emergency temporary standards. 42nd Street Bagel is a popular mom and pop shop in the Claremont Colleges community. As a result, it became a staple for its people during the pandemic. Effective since July, Los Angeles County has tightened up its restrictions, mandates for restaurants, diners, and bars.
First and foremost is the safety of my employees as well as their families. So we continue to mandate the masks. We are asking our customers, our regulars, news.
The new restrictions mandates that all customers and staff, vaccinated or not, wear a mask at all times while inside establishments.
Kind of actually had seen a decline as things were going down. We actually had a lot of college students coming in as last-minute customers.
The loss of neighborhood businesses will have a rippling effect on communities such as this one for years to come.
Nothing was normal for us with the shutdown, not being able to go out or anything. This staying open is like a sense of comfort and normalcy.
As new variants come out, mom and pop shops must learn to stay afloat and adjust to the new mandates so they can thrive throughout the pandemic. Reporting for Valley View News, I am Malik Patterson.
More to come on Valley View News. An Amazon facility collapses in Illinois, and a toy drive in Inglewood aims to bring holiday cheer to vulnerable families. We'll be right back.
Coming up on Valley View News, people across Los Angeles celebrate Transgender Awareness Week. Plus, California farm workers fight for better pay and treatment at work. And Kyle Rittenhouse is found innocent, sparking outrage nationwide.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Mary Peronian.
And I'm Elizabeth Medina in the Digital Media Center.
Kyle Rittenhouse's acquittal has sparked protests across the country. The 18-year-old was found not guilty on all charges in connection to a shooting in Kenosha last year. His accusations included killing 2 men with an assault rifle at a Black Lives Matter protest. Rittenhouse's defense team claimed his actions were motivated by self-defense. Since the verdict, large-scale demonstrations have risen in Chicago, New York City, and Portland, Oregon. CSUN students also responded to the trial's aftermath.
It's really disheartening to know that somebody can take advantage of the legislative process or the judicial process to basically commit acts of violence like that.
Because it's not right, like the 17-year-old boy that got away with what he did. People shouldn't be quiet about it.
Protesters in Kenosha traced the route Rittenhouse took the night of the shooting. Several marched to petition racial justice and to end vigilantism. Commenting on the verdict, President Biden said he stood by the jury's decision and stated that the country's jury system works.
5 people were killed and more than 48 injured after an SUV struck a crowd at a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. Authorities said the figures may climb as the cases evolve.
Of this tragic event, and making sure that the next of kin is conducted. And then we're working with the families. That is our priority in this tragic incident.
Footage of the incident in Waukesha captured a red vehicle speeding into a band as spectators watched. According to Police Chief Daniel Thompson, the SUV charged through barricades before slamming into attendees. Thompson also confirmed that an officer shot at the moving vehicle to stop it from advancing. A person of interest was taken into custody and questioned overnight. Authorities are investigating the possibility that the driver was fleeing an altercation involving a knife fight.
Closing arguments in the Ahmaud Arbery death trial began in Georgia. Gregory McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and their neighbor William Bryan are facing murder charges. Defense attorney Kevin Goff's request for a mistrial was denied last week. Goff's controversial comments, along with his quest to ban black pastors from the courtroom, have gained criticism.
For him to turn around the peaceful gathering of black pastors who came to support Ahmaud Arbery and call that a lynching is really a slap in the face. And at this point, Mr. Goff has really been targeting the parents in a way I've never seen before.
The 3 defendants were indicted on 9 counts, including malice murder and false imprisonment. Brian and the McMichaels are also facing federal hate crime charges in the separate case. A trial for the hate crimes is scheduled for February 2022.
Vice President Kamala Harris became the first woman to hold the power of presidency. President Biden temporarily transferred the role before undergoing a routine colonoscopy. She held the position for 85 minutes during the procedure. Harris also broke barriers in January by becoming the first Black and South Asian woman vice president. After her historic shift, Harris traveled to promote the new bipartisan infrastructure deal.
Transgender Awareness Week is recognized nationally in November. CSUN's Pride Center participated by curating a series of events for students. Valley View's Alexia Mersola has the details.
CSUN's Pride Center held Trans Empowerment Week last week as part of National Trans Awareness Week, which helps raise the visibility of transgender people and the issues they face. Jay Hitomi, the Pride Center's interim supervisor, helped organize CSUN's events.
When we were coming up with this event for the CSUN Pride Center, though, we felt that trans awareness wasn't enough. We wanted to create an event that really served our trans students and made them feel centered, empowered.
There were events all week, but the most anticipated activity was the Transcendence Art Show. It featured work from the trans community. Whitney Workman is the acting coordinator for CSUN's Pride Center.
The art show came about from our team wanting to specifically show the art of trans artists and celebrate their life and work.
Although the week is recognized nationally, Jay says it was renamed to focus on the students at CSUN.
We renamed ours Trans Empowerment Week to really center those trans experiences and give them and provide resources that they can use.
Pride Center says Trans Empowerment Week and events like it are put in place to bring the school together and spread awareness about transgender people, not only on campus, but around the world. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Alexia Mersola.
Warrants were issued for the man who fled an Atlanta airport after his firearm discharged at a security checkpoint. Deputy Chief of Airport Operations Michael Winfrey gave a report of the injuries associated with the event.
Atlanta Fire assisted with the evacuation today. During the incident, there were a report of 3 injuries, but none were associated with the self-evacuation. We provided service to those in need and helped to return the airport back to normal business continuity.
Authorities identified the man as 42-year-old Kenny Wells. In a statement, TSA said an X-ray machine identified a prohibited item in Wells' bag. The weapon went off after Wells lunged for the luggage as it was being searched. Wells then reportedly ran off through the airport's front doors with the gun in hand. Although no one was shot, the gunfire caused widespread panic. Warrants were issued for Wells on charges that include possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and reckless conduct.
Donald Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen was released from his 3-year prison sentence on Monday. The attorney was convicted on 9 counts in 2018, including tax fraud, lying to Congress, and financial violations. He paid off 2 women who threatened to go public concerning past affairs with Trump. Cohen spent part of his sentence at his New York apartment and counted down his release on Twitter. The disbarred lawyer says he will continue to look into documents and ongoing investigations regarding the 2016 election.
Oklahoma inmate Julius Jones was granted clemency hours before his arranged execution. The 41-year-old was on death row for almost 2 decades for the 1999 murder of businessperson Paul Howell. Governor Kevin Stitt said he reduced Jones's sentence to life in prison after a prayerful consideration. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki reacted to the new conviction and discussed President Biden's worries.
He has grave concerns about whether capital punishment, as currently implemented, is consistent with the values that are fundamental to our sense of justice and fairness. And certainly as looking at a case like this, you reflect.
Activists allege that new evidence suggests Jones is not guilty of murder. Protests calling attention to his innocence were staged nationwide as his execution date loomed. Although Jones's sentence was lessened, he will not have the opportunity for parole. In a statement, his mother, Madeline Davis Jones, said his life behind bars is an injustice and she will continue to fight for his freedom.
Agriculture workers continue to be statistically more at risk for contracting COVID-19. With no benefits, these essential workers want to be recognized for their contributions. Valley View's Catherine Hernandez has the story.
Many businesses had to shut down during the pandemic, but the agriculture industry continued with its mostly undocumented workforce. Those workers are considered essential workers. Nevertheless, they don't qualify for most assistance.
They don't have access to health insurance or any benefits, and they continue to work because they have to feed their families.
California has more than 800,000 farm workers. They're more likely to get COVID-19 than people in other industries. They work long hours in close proximity to many people. Farm workers say they may be called essential, but they aren't treated like they are.
I thank God that I haven't gotten COVID because we work so much and put our health on the line. The government doesn't realize that. We don't receive the help we deserve.
Many undocumented farm workers say they want to be treated with respect and dignity. There needs to be more awareness about their rights and their citizenship. Magdaleno says they make sacrifices that should be recognized.
They have 10 to 15 years they haven't seen their family. It's not possible. They suffer from every aspect of their life.
Many laborers say they hope that one day their essential work will be recognized and they'll be welcomed to the U.S. legally. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Catherine Hernandez.
A record-breaking $15 million will be paid to family of Elijah McClain. The sum will settle a civil rights lawsuit filed against the city of Aurora after McClain died in a 2019 confrontation with police. It may turn out to be the largest sum of money ever settled in Colorado and amongst the heftiest in the country. The victim's family initially carried out the federal lawsuit in 2020 on charges of violating McClain's civil rights.
Biden, the Canadian Prime Minister, and the Mexican President met at the White House for their first North American Leaders Summit since 2016. This continued during Donald Trump's presidency. The 2021 Three Amigos Conference sought to reestablish political relations.
So today, it's about what we can do in partnership and mutual respect to strengthen our region and prove democracies can deliver in the second quarter of the 21st century.
Biden commended Justin Trudeau for maintaining an easy relationship with the U.S. He also highlighted the mutual respect that exists between the U.S. and Mexico. Climate change, COVID-19, and immigration were also major talking points. Although Biden aimed to build connections, Canada and Mexico voiced concerns over proposed tax credits on electric vehicles. The three world leaders are scheduled to set goals when they meet in Mexico next year.
Pfizer is asking the FDA to authorize their new experimental COVID-19 treatment pill, Paxlovid. If regulators approve, the U.S. government will pay Pfizer almost $5.3 billion for 10 million treatment courses. Paxlovid is intended to decrease the chances of being hospitalized and dying of the virus by almost 90% of those mildly to moderately infected who were at higher risk. Pfizer also shared that they have signed a deal with a UN-backed group that will allow other companies to make a COVID-19 pill too. This move would help the treatment become more accessible to more than half of the world's population.
More to come on Valley View News. The FCC approves a national suicide prevention texting hotline, and members of the CSUN community call attention to the importance of highlighting cases of missing people of color. We'll be right back.
The headlines these days are full of environmental hazards all around us. In recent news, we've heard about the massive oil spill in the ocean waters off Huntington Beach here behind me. The spill endangered wildlife and also released harmful toxins into the air. We've also heard about the fires that have consumed our forests and the long-lasting rise in temperatures we've endured. Activists are saying the use of fossil fuels and pollution are large factors of climate change that are harming our planet. But stories about other everyday environmental risks are often left out of major media coverage, even though they also cause harm in our community. Some organizations in Southern California are taking steps to spread awareness and repair the damage caused by these risks. On Point's Vanessa Garcia has more.
Thank you, Alana. Let's now welcome the members of our panel. Today we have Jessica Toth, who is the Executive Director of the Solana Center for Environmental Innovation, a San Diego-based nonprofit organization, Carlos Campero, who is the Director of Conservation Programs for the LA Conservation Corps, Rita Kompoloth, Sustainability Program Director from the Chief Sustainability Office of LA County, and Katie Whiteman, Field Institute Director for the Sequoia Parks Conservancy. I first want to thank all of you for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Jessica, I want to start with you. So through my research, I have learned that studies report that human activity is a major contributing factor to the increase of greenhouse gases. And connecting to that, your organization emphasizes the importance of zero waste. What is zero waste, and why should people start thinking of probably going zero waste?
That's a very good question. Zero waste actually is a clever name to encompass basically what we call waste diversion. So diverting waste from going to the landfill, but it also encompasses preventing waste in the first place. But it's important because as an example, we don't want resources such as recyclable material, which can be recycled, to go in the landfill. We also don't want specifically organic material to go to the landfill, and that has its own way of being recycled.
Staying in the same topic, Carlos, your organization holds a great emphasis on the environments with the Clean and Green program, which helps clean the city of LA. Can you talk about the work behind that program?
Sure. So Clean and Green started in 88, sorry. Mayor Tom Bradley then reached out to the leadership of the LA Conservation Corps and asked, hey, we want to do something with youngsters. And so it started in middle school with young people from John Adams Middle School, which was across the street from our original site on 29th Street in Maine. The emphasis is to teach and expose young people to what Jessica was talking about and the need to recycle, to reduce our carbon footprint. Well, carbon footprint wasn't a term we used in 88 yet, but that was the idea.
Katie, I want to bring you into the subject as well. The Sequoia Parks Conservancy holds the importance of preserving the Sequoia and King Canyon National Parks, which holds some of the world's largest trees. How is climate change affecting the forest with higher temperature and dealing with drought conditions? Is it in any way stressing the trees?
That's a really good question. And yes, in a really short answer, yes, it is affecting the trees. Giant sequoias are amazing trees, the largest trees in the world by volume, but they are not, they're not totally adapted to the conditions that we're seeing today. And so the sequoias are drought stressed. They are also facing issues with bark beetle. As the drought continues and as the drought gets worse, the bark beetle population goes up, and the trees lose their natural defense mechanisms against those beetles. And so, and as you, I'm sure all are aware, we just experienced and are still experiencing a really horrific wildfire that has been devastating Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks over the last month.
I now want to introduce a story from one of our reporters here at On Point. Climate change has led to more hot days and longer heat waves. So one organization is trying to add more shade and improve the air quality across Los Angeles. On Point's Alana Martinez has the story.
City Plants is an organization that hosts events to plant trees across Los Angeles, especially in neighborhoods without a lot of tree cover. Gina Ranieri works for the city's sanitation department, which helps with the tree plantings. She says City Plants targets areas near schools and parks.
You're physically healthier when you live in a green neighborhood. A child that lives in an area with trees is 3 times less likely to visit the ER for asthma than a child that does not have any street trees in their neighborhood.
Planting trees also provide shade, which can drastically reduce temperatures.
We really target neighborhoods that don't have a good tree canopy and try to complete that canopy, because trees can reduce the temperature by like 15 to 20 degrees. So if it's 80 degrees out, it can feel 75 degrees in the shade.
By planting trees, City Plants hopes to reduce air pollution caused by environmental hazards and vehicle traffic throughout Los Angeles.
With climate change and all of our emissions, we're just putting a lot of carbon out into our atmosphere. But the only piece of technology that exists in the world to remove that carbon from the air is trees.
For more information on events, or to find out how to get involved, visit online at cityplants.org. Reporting in Sun Valley, I'm Alana Martinez.
Rita, I now want to tie in the following story that we just witnessed, referring to the released data that recently appeared this month of October. So under the LA County Climate Vulnerability Assessment, it's a pretty lengthy study and it's very informative. I believe it was around a 141-page PDF file. Several residents in the county live in communities that are considered to be highly exposed to severe climate impacts now and through the year of 2050. What environmental factors are disproportionately affecting these specific communities?
Glad you looked through the whole document. It is lengthy. So, the purpose of the document was to really, like you said, look at kind of like the human impact of climate hazards. And we focused on 5 specific hazards in the assessment, which is what I think you're referring to. One was extreme heat. One is wildfire, as we've talked about today already, intense drought, severe precipitation. On the flip side of drought, we're also going to see more extreme rain events. Possibly even next week, we're going to see northern part of California hit by, what is called an atmospheric river event. And then flooding. Both coastal sea level rise, but also inland flooding around our surface water bodies, our rivers and things like that.
Thank you so much, Rita. And that is all the time that we have today. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come and talk to me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching On Point. We'll be right back.